Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and pleased to welcome in now to talk a little bit of the offseason overall and the draft class more specifically. Pro Football Focus NFL draft analyst Trevor Sikkema joining us, friend of the show. And Trevor, thanks for giving us some time. We are a little bit removed from the draft now, but certainly plenty of time to still discuss this. You gave the Bills an A- grade, and I actually asked Brandon this himself because I can't remember a draft class that lined up as well as this one did with some of the most pressing positional needs that the Bills had in the Beane-McDermott era. And I asked him, can you remember a draft class that worked that well for him before? And he said he could not. So I know with your grade, you probably feel similarly.
Yeah, and the two, I think, major areas that they were looking to improve when it came to the 2025 NFL draft was secondary, right? Getting a guy who could be a competent starting outside corner for you. And then really a lot of just work on the defensive line, getting a little bit younger, getting a little bit bigger. And I think that they did that across the board, right? It started with Maxwell Harrison. And I think that when we went through mock drafts for the Buffalo Bills, when we got to their pick at the end of the first round, it was often, okay, did the right corner fall to them at the back end of the first round, or are they taking a pass rusher, an interior defensive lineman? And it felt as though once we started to get close towards the draft and we went a little bit further beyond those round one mock drafts, we would start getting into, okay, what's a 2-round, 3-round mock draft look like for the Bills or whoever we were doing it for? When you built out the draft strategy, it was almost like you couldn't lose, right? This draft class was just, it was set up in the right way to allow Buffalo to navigate this thing how they wanted. And it was really just a matter of picking the players that they wanted there. And so I think that certainly with their first handful of selections before we got into day 3, in the middle of the day 3 specifically, they were hitting those two areas hard. And I thought they got a lot of really good players. I do.
Yeah, and it really came about. We had seen so many mock drafts that, and you know, they're all over the map sometimes, particularly early on, because you never, you know, everybody kind of hones in after free agency. Then you can kind of focus in and you kind of get a better idea. But all three of the Bills' first 3 picks at one point were mocked in the first round to Buffalo. I thought, and particularly Landon Jackson. I thought all of these picks had a chance to be there, but man, oh man, if you'd have told us maybe in March that all 3 of those guys would be available for the first 3 picks of Buffalo, I don't think you would. I think most people would have said they've been gone.
Yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. I think that Jackson was the most surprising that he was there at number 72. He is somebody who I had him ranked 39th on my big board. And funny enough, when you look at Maxwell Harrison and TJ Sanders, I actually had Landon Jackson ranked highest on my big board out of those 3 guys. Now, that's not to take anything away from the first 2. I had Jackson 39th on my big board. I had Harrison 43rd, and I had TJ Sanders at 54th. And so it's right around the same value. But to get all of these guys in a single haul, I think is what makes this really impressive. Now, clearly, I was a little bit lower on Harrison than I think just other people were in general. Like I had Benjamin Morris in the corner from Notre Dame a little bit higher. I had who was Trey Amos, who ended up going to the Washington Commanders. Those are 2 corners that I had above Maxwell. But for Buffalo specifically, they like to play that off-zone coverage type of defense. A lot of cover 3, a lot of quarter stuff. And with that, that leans into what Maxwell Harrison does really well. So I wondered if he would be somebody that they considered in the second round. They obviously thought highly enough of him to take him in the first round there. But yeah, I agree with you. When you just look at this draft class as a whole, it's hard to not give the Bills anything less than, I would say, a B at worst, just depending on if you had certain players that you would have rather had them select at certain positions. But a really job well done by them in their scouting.
And then in terms of the moves that Brandon Beane made up the board, he did it twice for defensive tackles. Goes up 15 spots to get Sanders, goes up 23 spots on day 3, right out of the gate, to go get Deion Walker. And it's an interesting case study here with Deion Walker because they did a really deep dive into his background. Obviously, they came to understand that he played with a pars defect in his back all senior year. And so when they compared and contrasted his 2023 tape with his 2024 tape, and after talking to him through the pre-draft process, I really feel like they felt they had a firm grasp of why we saw the production fall off the way it did. The sense we get is they attributed a lot of it to his injury and not being able to play with leverage because his back hurt.
Right.
And Bean has said it. He basically said if he came out in the 24 draft, he would have been a first-round draft choice. He's convinced of it. That's just his opinion. And he's still a risk because of what 2024 was on paper and on film. What level of boom could you attach to a player the caliber of Deone Walker if he returns to 2023 form?
Yeah, I think that he's a starting caliber NFL player, right? If you look at 2023 and you say to yourself, not even returning to 2023 form, but you remember, like, he's an underclassman at that point as well. And so, like, this is still a young football player. So if you go back to 2023 being a baseline and assume that he is going to get better, well, now obviously you have something that is worthy of maybe not a maybe it would be a first round pick, but just something top 50, first 2 rounds, whatever it is. That's the range that you take a player who has starting caliber NFL ability. Now, this is one where I sort of have to trust the NFL team that took him, right? But I sort of have to trust Brandon Beane and the work that they did to get to the bottom of it and do that background information. Because on my side of things, I don't get to talk with him. I don't get the extensive medical backgrounds. I don't get to talk to the school and things like that. And so instead, all I can really see is, hey, he was great in 2023, but then obviously, okay, we take the back injury into account for sure, but you guys mentioned it. This is a uniquely built prospect, really long, really tall, has massive size to him. But when you don't play with good pad level, it makes it hard to just succeed at the NFL level, even for as big as he is. And so in 2024, that leverage game just got so far away from him, where he was not able to be explosive. He was not able to be a difference maker. And if you don't think that 2024 film is a representation of who he is as a prospect, then I can understand leaning on more of 2023 and the potential that he had there. I was very wary on it just because I didn't really know what to believe. I had heard of the back injury, obviously, when that became public, but still, the 2024 tape was not nearly as impactful as you needed it to be and consistent as you needed it to be. But to answer your question, what could this guy become? What is the boom of the boom or bust scale here for him? I think he is a uniquely built potential impact starter along their defensive line, especially when you throw a guy who's already got great length to him and versatility like Greg Rousseau. Obviously, the more length and the more size that you have, it only frees up a guy like Ed Oliver to do his thing as a one gap penetrating and attacking defensive tackle. I think the same for TJ Sanders as well. Both of those guys are sort of cut from the same cloth. And so if Walker can get back to 2023 form, at the very least, in my opinion, he's a rotational player that could be an impact guy for you that just gives you that unique length that can make him a mismatch against a lot of interior offensive linemen, even in the league.
And as you get down further into the draft, the Bills go to Ohio State and take Jordan Hancock. And for a lot of people, he's just, he's a middle-round defensive back. And you look at him, and you look at the Bills roster, Taron Johnson has been an absolute difference maker for this defense, and because of his ability to play slot corner all the time on first and second down as well as third down. Jordan Hancock seems to me the same guy. So when you get into that part of the draft and you're looking for maybe not a starter, but a guy who could step in and do what your top guy does, it seems like Jordan Hancock fits that bill.
Yeah, 100%. And I like, I like him going to this defense specifically because I like how they have used their defensive backs as, okay, are they corners / slot defenders? Are they safety / slot defenders? Hancock is more of that safety / slot defender player, but that just means that he brings you that plus size. I think he's got great length to him as well. I think he's got a long wingspan. He's got those long arms for pass breakups, for wrapping up tackles. You can match him one-on-one against tight ends. I feel like he got very confident as a slot defender. I didn't love his 2023 tape, and honestly, getting back around to his 2024 stuff, it took me a while to get to his final eval, but when I watched him, I was like, man, I think this guy could be a starting slot player in the NFL. And so again, for this defense, a good scheme fit as well as a talent fit. He can come down from depth. He could tackle you with some pretty good hitting power as well. So I think he's built like an NFL slot. He can neutralize a lot of different types of defenders. And I think that reliability as a tackler is what makes you feel so good about Jordan Hancock there. But I also like this selection too.
Yeah, a lot of people surprisingly like the Dorian Strong pick out of Virginia Tech as well. Press man guy. And while he might not blow up the stopwatch, there are people that are saying they're getting Christian Benford vibes from Dorian Strong, who, as you know, was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I won't say Benford quite yet. I just out of respect for how good Benford is, honestly.
Yeah,
But
right.
I do think that certainly Dorian Strong, again, I like him as a fit in this defense. And whether it is in press man, or I also like what he can do as a zone coverage defender as well. I think he's got good instincts to him. He's got those long arms. Now, he's got a little bit of a slender build to him. And so you want him to get a little bit stronger. You want him to be a little bit more reliable when it comes to making a difference at the catch point or wrapping guys up for tackles. But he is somebody who I just love the instincts. When I watched him play, it felt like, okay, he's got a good feel for when wide receivers are going to break in their routes. You know, he understands how to not just play. When we say play press man coverage, a lot of times we just think, oh, okay, this guy's big, he's long, and he's strong. That means he can play press man coverage. When you play press man coverage, you've got to understand what a wide receiver is about to do. You've got to understand different packages of releases, quick releases, more elongated releases. You've got to understand, okay, when you can anticipate the breaks in the route, because you have your back to the football when you're playing in press man coverage. And so it takes a lot of instincts to play that type of coverage as well. So I think that he's got that to him. And then that shows up in the off coverage work as well. He has the appropriate amount of space between him and the wide receiver to sort of make a quarterback make a second guess a throw, just pump fake one extra time to give the defense an advantage to close in on him. I think that Strong is that kind of a player. So the reason why he dropped to where he did is because there's a little bit of play strength concerns with him. But if he can get a little bit stronger, I really do think that you have got a good depth piece type of a corner and somebody that might be able to fill in for you as a starter at some point.
Let's go back up to the just after the top of the draft. Everybody we've been talking about, my co-host here as well, have landed on this Landon Jackson guy who, hey, I like him too, but everybody we talk to is just gushing over the fact that the Bills got him where they got him. What are your thoughts about him and how big a contributor? And I get it. You pick him in the second round or at the back of the round or early in the third, whatever it was, 72, I think.
Yeah, early third.
How much can you expect out of him, and could you get a guy that outplays that?
I think so, absolutely. To me, when I look at Landon Jackson, this is a new bet and an even higher athletic ceiling than what you had when they took AJ Epinesa. I really do think that, because the baseline is the same. Okay, this is a uniquely built defensive end prospect. He's got the long arms, he's got the long build. A lot of that was the strengths of what AJ Epinesa was sort of bringing to the defensive line. But I think that Landon Jackson's got a better first step. I think he's a little bit more flexible, and obviously you're getting him now on a cost-controlled rookie contract. So this is somebody who I had the chance to interview Landon Jackson for a feature piece we did over at PFF as well. Just a great dude. I mean, just absolutely loves football, comes from a football family. He's going to work his butt off for you, and I think that everybody at Arkansas said the same, honestly. And he was a pretty high recruit when he got to LSU, and he's just dealt with some knee injuries early on in his career. But, he's been saying over the last 2 years he's good to go now, and I think his tape definitely reflects that. He had his highest PFF grades of his career this past season, an 83.5 overall grade. He's got some pretty strong run defense scores, but then you get those flashes of a pass rusher as well. So again, this is somebody who is that similar mold of why you would draft and be drawn to a player like AJ Epinesa. But I even think that Landon Jackson's got a higher ceiling than that, and you're simply resetting that type of player on your defensive line with a guy that you got a rookie contract on in the third round.
All right, so help me here, Trevor, with an overarching look, because, they come out of this draft. They have one receiver as a seventh-round pick in Caden Prather out of Maryland. And then on the heels of the draft, they signed Elijah Moore, who just put pen to paper today and is now on the roster. So you couple that with Josh Palmer in the ad there, Laviska Shenault, who's probably going to be primarily a special teams guy. What do you think about what they have added collectively at receiver? They're younger, I would argue a little bit more athletic too, and some more speed on top of that. But collectively, if you can compare and contrast this year, at least what the receiver core looks like right now on paper compared to what they had last year, knowing Mac Hollins is out the door among others.
Yeah, I mean, losing Mac is big just because he's such a clutch performer for you, and obviously, losing Amari as well. Like that's anytime that you're doing that and you're replacing those players, like it's tough. You know, there's going to be a lot of in and outs in the lineup. But obviously, Khalil Shakir, mainstay for you. You're hoping the tight end room continues to be reliable, maybe even more reliable and impactful than it was the previous season. You're certainly hoping that Keon Coleman is taking another step up in his second year as well. I like the add of Palmer because when you're losing Matt Collins, the big thing that you're losing is that vertical ability, right? Some of those big catches deep down the field. And I think that Palmer allows you to do that. There were times when I liked Prather better than his teammate who went in the third round, Ty Felton. I'm going to be honest with you. And so there were times when I felt like Caden Prather looked more like the future pro than Felton did. So I felt like I was a little bit higher on Caden Prather than other people were out there. But I think the group is totally fine. I think especially adding a guy like Elijah Moore, okay, taking a chance on him. Laviska Shenault, letting him be a special teamer. Like, the room is pretty deep. You've got a lot of names that are there. Is it the most star-studded group? No, but very clearly, this team was very good at scoring last year. They were one of the top scoring offenses in the NFL, and I think that they have done enough to remain in that top portion of the category. And so I saw that Brandon Beane was talking about this a little bit earlier, like, hey, defense was our focus this year. Like, we feel as though what we have built around Josh, how the offensive line played last year, like, we know we can score points. And I still think they can score points with the wide receiver group that they have. And here's the other thing to remember. Acquiring wide receiver talent, you get the opportunity to do that all the time, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in the pro market. You have the opportunity to get wide receivers all the time, every single year. And so let's say that even the group that they have right now, they want to upgrade a little bit more at receiver. They will be able to do that at the deadline. And if it's a little further than that, they will be able to do it in free agency. And then if it's further than that, they will be able to do that in next year's NFL draft. And so I know that, like, fans love wide receivers. Like, everybody wants to have, like, the great wide receivers. And obviously it's a big part of why your team is so successful. But I try to remind people that in the capitalism game of supply and demand, there is a heavy supply of good wide receivers that can break out for you and be impactful for you. And so I like the way that Buffalo went about this offseason, prioritizing the defensive side of the football, getting different wide receivers in there, but I still think that that's enough for them to be a high-scoring offense in 2025.
I know this too. We're just got over with the 2025 draft, and I get it, and it's all the way too early projections. But put yourself down the road 3 or 4 years. What are you going to remember about this year's NFL draft?
Man, honestly, the very first thing that came to my mind is, like, what a host city that Green Bay was, actually. You know, like, I know that there's somebody's like, oh, you know, it's not every team or not every city should be able to host a Super Bowl. Like, you got to have certain stipulations. And so we should rotate the draft around everywhere. And man, what an incredible scene that was. I mean, when they get up there and they were saying, oh, like, you know, for the first time since 2002, the Green Bay Packers select wide receiver, and the crowd's kind of going crazy. And they say Matthew Golden, and the crowd just erupts and goes nuts. I mean, the scenes from there were unbelievable. The NFL draft has turned into such a cool part of the calendar. I've obviously been somebody who's been a huge NFL draft fan for a long, long time, but to see the league evolve this event and just, like, see the sights and sounds of what was from Green Bay this past year, it was really cool. And I think it showcases that, man, if you put the draft in one of these passionate fan base locations, you're absolutely going to love it. And it's going to be an incredible weekend.
Yeah. I mean, that was the moment of night one by far. I can't even imagine what it was like for Matthew Golden. I mean, this is your moment, you know, probably the best moment of your young life, unless, you know, you got a family and kids. And he not only gets picked in the first round, but by the team that's hosting the draft, and there's 100,000 people that instantly love you after they just heard your name got called. I cannot imagine what that was like, just walking out, and there's a sea of humanity, and in that moment, they all love you. I don't know if it's going to get better than that for him.
I don't know. Everything's downhill from there, isn't it? It kind of has to be. I mean, that's not just like walking out of the tunnel getting introduced
That's unbelievable.
Either. That's like, wow. That's a moment. That's awesome.
It's a lot of pressure, but I agree with you guys. I mean, like, he will never. I really hope that he has the kind of career where he can look back on that moment fondly, because that's something that was truly special.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Trevor, thanks as always for the insight. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you down the line. Enjoy a little downtime here that the draft is over and you can kind of breathe a little bit.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Anytime.